It's been a traumatic week in Kalamazoo. Since the tornado struck there Tuesday, information has been coming in bits and pieces. Tonight, Jim Childress has pieced together a report that ties it all together. The Kalamazoo tornado, the week that was.
It was around 4 Tuesday afternoon when weather track radar picked up a strong disturbance near Benton Harbor. In downtown Kalamazoo, it was just the end of another spring business day. But by 4:10, the whole world had changed. A killer tornado trampled 9 miles through the heart of Kalamazoo. It started on the western edge of town, a residential section of Kalamazoo Township, and it was on collision course with Kalamazoo's pride and joy, the downtown. That also happens to be the location of our Kalamazoo Bureau, so we were a part of the story we covered. The warning sirens downtown gave us just enough time to get into the basement. There are dozens of similar stories of near misses. At Claridge Fan, where 280 people work, it was shift change when the roof collapsed. 5 minutes either way, and there surely would have been serious injury. The twister came within a block of Bronson Hospital. Another disaster averted. The majority of the injury downtown occurred at Gilmore's department store. The back wall of the 6-story building collapsed. 2 died there, many more were hurt. Because the twister hit the city's hub of activity, there were many people who saw the whole thing unfold before their eyes.
I didn't know what to think. I'd never been in a storm like this before, and I just turned around and saw one of our office girls back here, and glass all over the place, in the air. I was just kind of standing there going, what in the world is happening here? It freaked me right out.
I saw it touch down because I saw debris starting to fly up in the air. And at that point, I immediately exited the top of the courthouse and proceeded down to the basement and helped get people down there.
You were on the roof of the building?
I was on the roof of the county building, but the tornado was some distance away, but it was close enough that I didn't stay up there any longer.
When the all clear sounded, an entire city had a look of disbelief etched on its face. Everybody in the stricken area was, to some degree, in shock. There were tears and hugs. I helped one lady huddled in a stairway, unable to speak. You spend all your life hearing about how these things happen in somebody else's hometown. But even with broken dreams and broken glass all around you, you are reluctant to accept it. The true scope of the disaster did not take shape for hours. For instance, being trapped downtown, I had no idea that 1,200 people on the other side of town were homeless at that moment. We all knew somebody had to be hurt. Most were surprised it wasn't worse. 5 were killed, at least 65 injured.
Dan, you go down there with Rod down there and stop all cars coming back down there so I can get down there and find out how to help get you're supposed to be blocked up.
What has transpired since the moment the storm left is a tribute to government. Even its harshest critics would admit, this week in Kalamazoo, the system worked. Before the last pane of glass fell, the police and emergency personnel were on the spot. By nightfall, a total of 600 police men and women were in Kalamazoo. Almost half were state troopers called in from across Michigan. One trooper from Flint said he wasn't even told what had happened. He just dropped everything and drove 90 miles an hour to Kalamazoo. By nightfall, 5 emergency centers were set up for the homeless. The governor had declared a state of emergency. There was a curfew, and only a few people obtaining passes from here at the Emergency Operations Center were allowed in the stricken area. The incredible harm to the Kalamazoo area was beginning to come into focus. I talked with Mayor Ed Annan after his first helicopter tour.
People looked calm. They could see us distinctly from the air, and they were walking and waving. Many people were already working on boarding up their areas. The damage is beyond belief, really, as far as I'm concerned, from what I could see. One of the major Catholic churches in the city, the walls on the outside are still standing. There is another church in the Northampton neighborhood, which is on our west side, which the total roof was blown off. Some houses were totally level. Others, the back wall was gone.
How many different touchdowns do you think there were in the city?
At least 5 or 6.
6 hours after the storm had touched down, Governor Milliken was in town. He spent 45 minutes walking the downtown area. It was an eerie scene. Things were quiet. All you could hear were bits of glass and debris still falling from the tall buildings. The odd stories were starting to circulate. Somebody found a rowboat 5 blocks from where it was last seen, strapped on top of a car. There were reports of 2x4s being driven into cement walls. Even in the dark, the governor could tell that the mayor was right when he called it the worst disaster in Kalamazoo's 150-year history.
We've taken a tour of the downtown area, and it reminds me of a bombed-out city. I'm just astounded at the degree of destruction and the debris which is everywhere. The astounding thing is that there were not more injuries or more fatalities than there were.
Wednesday, May 14th, Dig Out Day. The human side of this story was now bare to the world. On the north side of West Main Street, you could drive down any side street for miles and see people picking up the pieces. Pat Schoolmaster's street was the worst of the worst. Some homes there were only half left. The inside of hers was gone. With it went the presents she bought for her son's wedding this weekend.
We have a new pup, which I just heard a bunch of rumbling and grabbed the pup. It's headed for the basement, but it was over before I ever got there.
So you never made it to safety?
No,
What happened to your home?
it's demolished. And my furniture, all my possessions are ruined, and it's gone. That's all.
Where are you staying? Do you have a place?
Yeah, we stayed with our neighbors.
Josephine Yearden's home wasn't as bad as some, but her spirits were. Her husband has been ill. She is walking on crutches. Her daughter hurt her back cleaning up the rubble. And just last week, she had dropped the insurance on her car that was destroyed by the tornado.
Don't cry.
You know, after all, I'm not young. I'm 61 years old, and I worked for 4 years trying to add something to have it taken away like this. It's just not a happy scene.
Thursday, May 15th. Federal disaster evaluators have been in the city for 2 days now, and the figures that Washington needed to decide what aid it would offer were beginning to come in. 47 homes destroyed, 216 damaged, 116 businesses were hit. Physical damage alone in the Kalamazoo area was given an official price tag of $49,495,000. Because the center city is out of commission, the jobless figures are staggering. 5,000 people had not worked since Tuesday. 1,000 people will still be out of work in mid-June. But in the gloom, there was good news for the business community. Gilmore's department store announced that the wall it lost would be rebuilt. All major downtown buildings are repairable according to the Downtown Kalamazoo Association. By day's end, the figures are into Washington. Presidential action to open a flood of economic aid is expected soon. Still, most Kalamazoo residents have not had a first-hand look at what the storm did to their city. The curfew is still in effect at night, and the worst-hit areas are still sealed off. But the city is starting to bounce back, and Kalamazoo's mayor is optimistic.
We're a strong and resilient city, and we have the resources economically and within ourselves to recover, and we will recover. There's no question in my mind.
Two tornadoes touched down in the Kalamazoo area at 5 different locations. The central business district was hardest hit. When the side of a department store collapsed, 3 people were killed.
It was just glass flying everywhere, and you couldn't see a thing. It was pitch black from all of our windows. After they blew out, all you could see was darkness. There was nothing out there to see, and the wind, everything was going horizontally that I could tell. There's a lot of, dust and debris. You couldn't really tell because it was too dark.
Part of Kalamazoo's largest Catholic church is only a memory. Just an hour earlier, it was occupied by hundreds of school children. The remnants of glass windows sucked out of dozens of downtown office buildings has carpeted streets for blocks. Damage is estimated at $40 million. Within hours, Michigan Governor William Milliken declared Kalamazoo a disaster area. By 10 o'clock last night, he was in town touring the center city. He expects immediate help from the federal government.
It reminds me of a bombed-out city. I'm just astounded at the degree of destruction and the debris which is everywhere. The astounding thing is that there were not more injuries or more fatalities than there were.
Then you go down there with Rod down there and stop all cars coming back down there.
An overnight curfew kept looting to a minimum. The mayor of this city of 80,000 calls it the worst disaster in Kalamazoo's history. Considering where the tornadoes hit and when, many are surprised it was not much worse. Jim Childress for NBC News in Kalamazoo, Michigan.